Would we have won World War II without the atomic bomb? By the time World War II ended, over 70 million people had perished, making it the deadliest conflict in human history. But one moment stands out above all others: the dropping of the atomic bomb. Two strikes, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, ended the war, but at the cost of over 200,000 lives. The question remains, was it truly necessary? Could the Allies have won without unleashing the most devastating weapon ever created? The atomic bomb changed the course of history in a single blinding flash. It wasn't just the end of World War II. It was the beginning of the nuclear age, a time when humanity's power to destroy reached unthinkable heights. The decision to drop the bomb was one of the most controversial and consequential in military history. For some, it was the only way to end a brutal war and save lives in the long run. For others, it was an unnecessary act of terror that opened Pandora's box for the Cold War and the nuclear arms race. Today, we'll delve into this debate and ask, would the Allies have won World War II without the atomic bomb? To answer that, we need to explore the war's final days, Japan's resilience, and the alternatives that were on the table. As the summer of 1945 unfolded, the war in Europe was over. Germany had surrendered in May, and the Allies turned their full attention to the Pacific. Japan, however, refused to give in, even as its cities were reduced to rubble by relentless firebombing. The Allies faced a daunting question. How could they force Japan to surrender without further prolonging the war? The atomic bomb offered a solution, albeit one fraught with moral and ethical dilemmas. The Manhattan Project had produced a weapon capable of ending the war in a matter of days, but at a horrifying human cost. Without the bomb, the Allies' primary option was a land invasion of Japan, codenamed Operation Downfall. This plan envisioned an initial assault on Kyushu, followed by a larger invasion of Honshu, the main island. Military planners estimated that such an operation could result in hundreds of thousands of Allied casualties and millions of Japanese deaths. The stakes were unimaginably high. But was the atomic bomb truly the only way to avoid this? To understand the alternatives, we need to look at the context of the Pacific War in 1945. Japan's military capacity was crumbling. Its navy had been decimated, its air force was a shadow of its former self, and its economy was on the brink of collapse. Yet, Japanese leaders remained defiant, driven by a code of honor that placed surrender as the ultimate shame. The Allies tried other means to force Japan's hand. The Potsdam Declaration in July 1945 demanded unconditional surrender, warning of prompt and utter destruction if Japan refused. But Japan's leadership hesitated, divided between hardliners who wanted to fight to the bitter end and moderates seeking a way out. Some historians argue that the atomic bomb wasn't necessary because Japan was already on the verge of collapse. They point to the Soviet Union's entry into the Pacific War on August 8, 1945, just 2 days after Hiroshima, as a critical turning point. The Soviet invasion of Manchuria crushed Japan's last hope of negotiating a favorable peace and may have been the final straw that led to surrender. Others argue that a continued naval blockade and conventional bombing campaign could have forced Japan to its knees without the need for nuclear weapons. However, such tactics would have prolonged the war, potentially resulting in more suffering and death for both sides. And then there's Operation Downfall. Military planners estimated that an invasion of Japan could cost up to 1 million Allied lives and even more Japanese lives, including civilians. These grim projections heavily influenced President Truman's decision to use the atomic bomb. One of the most debated moments in this story is President Harry Truman's decision on July 25, 1945, to authorize the use of the bomb. In his diary, Truman wrote that the bomb would be used against military targets to spare the Japanese people from further suffering. But the reality was far more complex. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were not just military targets. They were thriving cities, home to tens of thousands of civilians. The impact of the bomb was immediate and horrifying. On August 6, 1945, Hiroshima was obliterated, killing an estimated 140,000 people by the end of the year. 3 days later, Nagasaki suffered a similar fate. For the Japanese, the devastation was unimaginable. For the Allies, it was a grim victory. Historians remain divided on whether the bomb was necessary. Some argue it was the quickest and most effective way to end the war and save lives in the long run. Others believe Japan would have surrendered without it, given the combined pressures of Soviet aggression, economic collapse, and relentless bombing. But the bomb's impact went far beyond the war. It ushered in a new era of geopolitical tension as nations scrambled to develop their own nuclear arsenals. The Cold War and the threat of mutually assured destruction were direct consequences of that fateful decision. The question of whether the Allies would have won World War II without the atomic bomb is one that may never have a definitive answer. What we do know is that the decision to use the bomb was shaped by fear, urgency, and a desire to end a war that had already claimed too many lives. It's a reminder of the immense power we hold and the immense responsibility that comes with it. The atomic bomb didn't just end a war, it changed the course of history, leaving us to grapple with its legacy to this day. What do you think? Was the atomic bomb necessary to end World War II, or could the Allies have achieved victory without it? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to check out our next video. Let's keep this conversation alive as we dive deeper into history's most complex questions.